All right, as we start today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways on which we gather. Today, we pass through the lands of the Camaragal peoples who have cared for this country for countless generations. We pay our respect to elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to the lands and waterways and the community. We honour their wisdom, culture, and resilience. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. So today is Hamed's mid-candidature review. First of all, I'd like to thank his supervisory panel, which is made up of Professor Jesse Gow and Dr. Emma Bradshaw as his co-supervisors, led by the most excellent Professor Teresa Dickey. And today's MCR panel is the experts are Professor Joseph Sirachi and Dr. Heron Jang, again led by Associate Professor Baljinder Sadra as the chair. So without further ado, Hamed, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to my mid-candidature. Today, I'm going to talk about should I stay or should I go, a self-determination theory and dual process model, perspective on employee turnover. First, I will give a definition on employee turnover and I will talk about its importance. Then I will review the literature of employee turnover very briefly, and I will discuss that why we need self-determination, in fact, theory to incorporate that to this, in fact, literature of employee turnover. And from there, I will, in fact, identify the research gaps, and I will talk about, in fact, the research questions I am working on. After that, I will discuss how I will use my approach to Australian school leaders' data as in fact longitudinal data analysis. And from the results, I will draw some discussions and I will explain, in fact, the next steps. The main idea of my research is that when organizations are planning in order to increase need satisfaction, in order to reduce turnover intention, at the same time, because of some organizational problems or some barriers, there is also another path, which is increasing need frustration leading to increasing turnover intention. There is an example in the literature which says that, in fact, in hospitals, when they, in fact, designed self-rostering programs in order to increase the need satisfaction of nurses, but due to lack of organizational problems, such as severe workload or even lack of training, not only, in fact, the problem was not solved, but the complaints from the, in fact, customers became a basis in order to blame the nurses that you are not doing well at rostering. And it reinforced, in fact, new frustration on nurses. And it led to, in fact, more turnover intention. While it was meant to help them, the program, but it provided, in fact, more pressure on them. So that's a question that what happens when we want to, in fact, increase need satisfaction in organizations, we are still facing another paths in order to, in fact, increase frustration. In my PhD, I have 3 studies. My first study is a meta-analysis, which is now in progress, and I'm, in fact, mainly focusing to add the dark path, in fact, studies to it. And now I'm just, in fact, going ahead with my full text screening. Of course, I have an external literature completed from that. In my second study, I focus on Australian school leaders' data. And in my third study, I'm going to focus that how STT dual process model can explain the transition from having a turnover intention to actual turnover, to test that what happens there from intention to the behavior. Here I'm giving a definition. Employee turnover is the voluntarily quitting of a job that threatens the stability and performance. And while talking about employee turnover, most of the literature, in fact, is based on turnover intention. I mean, the willingness to quit a job. But also we have the concept of actual turnover, which is the final decision to leave a job. And the importance of employee turnover is clear because we know that it has very significant effects on the community. We are facing, in fact, sector crises in education, healthcare. Also, it incurs financial losses to the community. Having a review on employee turnover, in fact, history, we see that most of the models for more than 100 years. They are focusing on how to measure job satisfaction and link that to, in fact, desirability and the ease of quitting a job. And mainly they are saying that how is it possible to make it difficult that employees do not quit. But Home and Piazza in 2025, they are arguing that, okay, they might be staying, but this reluctant staying is even more harmful than employee turnover. And they call for a more integrity and a broader approach to, to analyze employee turnover. That's where I decided to focus on self-determination theory. And I believe that self-determination theory can overcome this critic. And of course, by focusing on motivation through satisfaction of basic needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness, it provides a broad and integrated approach in order to reduce turnover, but not only reduce turnover, but also increase the well-being at workplace and also improving the performance, which benefits the organization as well. So here, I'm talking about STT dual process model. While we think that the bright path, starting from need support, increasing need satisfaction and positive outcomes, is the only thing that we have in mind. At the same time, because of organizational or other reasons, the dark path also rises, where the need thwartings lead to more need frustration and increasing the negative outcomes like turnover intention. So the key point in here is that the dark path is not only the absence of the bright path, and it's the actively undermining the basic needs path. So this is why I'm not going to focus on, in fact, a real world example, which is in fact the school leaders data, and examine my study there and answer my, in fact, research questions in the context of a school leader. As we know, more than 50% of them have intention to quit, and also 18% of annual turnover is a big problem now. Having a look at the, in fact, literature review of, in fact, using SDT and employee turnover, we find that most of the, in fact, focus is on the bright path again. And employee turnover had not been focused on through a, in fact, STT dual process model where employee turnover is under focus. And of course, in the literature we have from McAnally and Hajar that they are saying that most of the studies also are focusing on cross-sectional studies. So we need more longitudinal analysis. So this will be, in fact, my conceptual model and also the research questions. Longitudinally, I have time 1, time 2, need satisfaction and frustration, and the 2 outcomes of turnover intention and commitment. And I consider commitment because it's in fact, a strong predictor of retention. My research questions are, what are the longitudinal association between satisfaction and frustration, and also commitment and turnover intention? In fact, in the first research question I'm examining, and I'm trying to say that both paths exist in this problem, and they are distinct paths to be considered. In the second, in fact, research question, I am asking that, is frustration a stronger predictor of turnover intention than satisfaction is as a protective factor? I want to ask that whether frustration, while we know is increasing the turnover intention, can satisfaction reduce that or not? And also, in the third question, I'm in fact looking for a construct insight in order to find out which, in fact, construct might be, in my case, of more priority, because I want to have some implications for decision makers in the industry. Here is my study, in fact, details. I have 955 participants for 2 years of 2023 and 2024. We see that 62% of them are female, 37 are male. Also, I have 74% with more than 10 years of work experience. Also, I have introduced my measures, 24 item 1 in 6 subscales, turnover intention, the single one item, and also the commitment to work is the 3 item 1, and also some descriptives on my, let's say, measures. Here is the correlation table in order to have an insight over my, in fact, descriptives and my data correlations, the Pearson one. And here is, in fact, the model results, which of course seem to be very simple. We see that in my, in fact, findings based on my context, autonomy frustration significantly predicts turnover intention, but none of the satisfaction items can significantly reduce turnover intention. And of course, autonomy satisfaction can predict significantly the commitment, while we don't have any other, in fact, path from the satisfaction items to, let's say, my outcomes here. Also, the stability paths here are all, in fact, significant. Here is also my fit models, where, in fact, they are ranging to excellent, in fact, interval. And I incorporated the covariate model where the gender, year in leadership, school type, and also the school sector did not change my results significantly. And my model results were robust. Based on the findings, my discussions are in the first research question. I'm confirming that the dual process model exactly in my, in fact, study holds, where, in fact, need satisfaction predicts commitment and need frustration predicts turnover intention. In my second research question, that's what happens between need frustration and need satisfaction in terms of turnover intention. I find that need frustration increased turnover intention and satisfaction could not reduce it. So frustration played the more, in fact, important role in my study. And about the construct also, autonomy was the more important construct in my example, as it predicted the turnover intention in terms of frustration and also commitment in terms of satisfaction. Here are the implications of my study, where, in fact, in the theoretical implications, I could address the call from Hom and Kiazar, and I, in fact, used self-determination theory as the integrative approach. Also, I applied the longitudinal data analysis as requested by McAnally and Hager. Also, I confirmed the asymmetry between the need frustration to turnover intention and also need satisfaction to commitment. For the construct level insight, in my example, it became, in fact, clear that autonomy is a priority now. Knowing that for practical implications, of course, now we know that we should go to the dark path and identify everything about that, learn more about that to reduce the need frustration. As autonomy looked to be the priority in my example, maybe limiting micromanagement would be a very, in fact, wise suggestion to start from. About the limitations of my study, maybe the most important thing is that I have a two-way study and I needed more data points. Of course, I could answer my research questions at this stage, but if I have more data points, I will be able to have more complex models to analyze my, in fact, questions. So for the future research, we search for data set with more time points that we have found a data set for European nurses with more than 10 time points. And of course, having this data for other industries, as I'm saying, for nurses would be very useful. And especially that our data has, in fact, the data for intention and the actual turnover, which will give us the possibility to study between intention to behavior. Here is also a very short report on my meta-analysis. We had 3,800 papers, 560 of them retaining, and we are now doing a preliminary analysis where so far we've had 24 studies, in fact, coded, but it's still, in fact, changing, and we are going ahead in my meta-analysis. Here are my research questions in my meta-analysis, where are normally the same as in my second study, but I am mainly focusing on finding the dark path studies as well. Also, considering more moderators like country, industry, also level of job experience, gender, organizational level, and organization type. Here are my search terms. Also, here is just a view of, in fact, data extraction summary, which is, of course, being completed. If I want to describe my journey of PhD, it will be like an ice mountain. So far, I have just focused in the middle, the need, satisfaction, frustration to turnover, intention. But in the rest of my journey, I will use that longitudinal data to study intention to actual turnover to see what happens there. Of course, there is enough room still in my research to think that what happens that needs working happens, the dark path starts. Maybe in an exploratory study, we can find maybe venues for research to link JDR, I mean job demand and resources, to link that to my SDT model and find out how the need, in fact, thwarting comes from maybe a sort of imbalance between resources and demands at a workplace. In my study 3, my research questions will be, do need satisfaction and frustration jointly moderate the relationship between turnover intention and actual turnover? And does need frustration act as an accelerator that strengthens the link between turnover intention and actual turnover? And of course, the third question will be, does need satisfaction weaken the link between turnover intention and actual turnover? Here is the timeline of my remaining PhD, where I should finalize my meta-analysis. And after that, I will be working on my longitudinal data analysis of the, in fact, European data, European nurses data. And of course, after that, completing the final year review and, of course, the writing up of the thesis. As a conclusion, so far, I can say that, in fact, being good maybe is not enough. We should stop being bad, simply. And providing conditions for need satisfaction is only part of the challenge. Reducing need frustration has the same importance. So the lingering challenge is how to explain them and avoid them. Thank you for your listening and your supporting all during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid. I'll hand over Baljinder to lead the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Can everyone hear me all right?
All good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Hamid. That was a very nice presentation, very clear. We understand your research questions really well based on both your document and the presentation that you gave. Your method is also clear. Your intentions of doing what you need to do and what you've already done is also clear. And the direction of where you're heading in your third study also seems a very nice logical flow of from your study 1 to study 2. I have a couple of questions. They're slightly tricky, but the intention is to think a little bit deeper about the analysis that you've done and think about the implications of your results and their interpretations and what you can infer from them and what you may not be able to infer from them. So you mentioned in the document, but also in your talk, that the actual turnover rate is something like 18%, 8 to 16%, I think it was in the document. And then I looked at your sample. What you've done is, this is your study too, right? So there's a reduction of sample size from over 2,000 to 955 participants, which represents a substantial attrition rate. So this is more than half of your initial sample is gone. I understand your rationale for doing it. You only want to use the complete cases and avoid any bias that may be related to missing data. And you wish to make robust longitudinal estimates. I agree with all of that. The issue in this case is that because the attrition rate, 50%, is substantially higher than the actual annual principal turnover rate, which is less than 20%, that suggests that factors beyond job turnover would be contributing to the non-response. And these could be factors like survey fatigue, workload, disengagement of other sort, maybe health issues. I don't know. The sky's the limit. Lots of other factors could be affecting it. What that means is if principals with higher turnover intentions were more likely to leave the study, your restricted sample would underrepresent those at greater risk of turnover. And that would bias your results. And a related concern is that if those who did not respond in both years differ in other important ways, for example, demographics, baseline turnover rate, job satisfaction, the findings may not be actually representative of the broader sample to which you want to infer. You want this is inferential statistics, so any estimates that you get, you want to infer to the broader population. So you buy some internal validity when you restrict the sample, but it seems to come at a cost of, possibly very high cost in this case, to external validity. And I wonder if you could comment on that, maybe think of ways how, using the data that you already have at hand, you may be able to address it somewhat.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. Of course, in my extended literature, where I talked about the 18%, it was a report on overall Australian, in fact, data. And it was not the data I used here, taken from IPPE, School Principals Leader. And in our, in fact, second study, I have only focused on turnover intention because in our project here, we don't have the data for actual quitting. But that's a very nice point that, of course, from more than 2,000 people of the whole data set, I had 955 who, in fact, participated in both of the years, in time 1 and in time 2. And it's a very, in fact, I think, considerable hint to see that, of course, if we don't have enough participants or school, in fact, leaders being in the survey in the same year. So that 18% cannot be compared to 50% of turnover intention in my second study. That's why in my third study, I want to confirm that I have in the same data set turnover intention and actual turnover. My recent data set of study 2 does not have actual turnover yet. So this was something maybe I should have made it more clear in my, of course, maybe writing. But now this is why I'm focusing on my third study to be sure that I have the actual turnover data.
I think study 3 will help. But what I'm trying to orient you to is if it's possible at all for you to maybe examine responders from, compare responders and dropouts in other ways and show that, do they differ in systematic ways? Because you have other variables that you could just compare them on your covariate, your demographics, for example.
Yeah.
Just give a more thought, a little bit more thought to what's going on with those people, more than 1,000 individuals that you decided to exclude from your study 2.
Yes, I think that's a very interesting idea to see why they are not there. I had some thoughts on it, but it was just something making ideas, even looking if it is possible to look to social media, doing some text mining to see that what are the results like in the real community compared to what we have a survey here. But these are just some ideas and thoughts for maybe further investigations. I just wanted here to make a framework to start looking at the dark path as well as the bright path. But thank you, that's a very nice idea, even to go to the demographics to see what is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I have other thoughts, which I'll forward to you and your supervisor later. And in the interest of time, I'd like to invite the other panel members if they have any comments or questions for you. So Joseph, you go first.
Can I comment on this particular issue that you've raised, because it's a really
Can you-
critical one?
As long as you don't go over time, because we only have 6 minutes left. So I'm going to have to be forgive me, I'll have to be strict. So Joseph, you go first.
Okay. When I ran into this problem, one of the things that I tried is I used all the data and just used multiple imputation for missing data. And I'm not saying that's a solution, and there are some problems to it, but it would be interesting to compare the two sets of results to see if they're similar. Okay, done.
Thank you very much, Herb. Joseph?
Yes, could I just thank you for that. That was really interesting. I'm just wondering if in the model on 14, were turnover, intentions, and commitment, were there relationships between those modeled as well? And I'm just assuming you're leaving some relationships out, like frustration and satisfaction correlations and all that. I assume those were modeled.
You're the model.
Controlling the relationship between turnover, intentions, and commitment.
Yeah, it looks like they're treated as
Yeah,
independent.
commitment reduces turnover intention. This is,
Did you?
They correlate.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
within time, yes, they were all correlated within time, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it was all, that was
this
all
is the point.
modeled.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just be real quick with the other question. I was just making sure, that's probably made sense to leave it out for clarity. You said one of your key hypotheses was that need, frustration would moderate the relationship between turnover, intention, and turnover, but I wondered if you might explain that, because for me, I think need, frustration, my model would be need, frustration causes intention to leave and then actual leaving. So I wasn't sure why that you would think of that as a moderator.
Thinking that as a moderator.
Yeah, you hypothesize. Yeah.
That's a question, that why I don't consider it as a moderator.
No, why? I thought that was your question. You were saying you propose it's a moderator, don't you?
No, I didn't put any moderator
Does
together.
need, satisfaction, frustration jointly moderate the relationship between turnover, intention, and actual turnover? RQ4.
Study 3. Here.
Well, this is for study 3.
This is for a study 3. Let me go, okay.
I just wasn't sure why you thought that might be a moderator. Instead of like a cause of.
Here,
No.
It's 23. I think it's slide 23.
Back,
it's slide 23.
back.
Yeah.
Here,
The purple box.
the purple box, yeah. Do need satisfaction, need frustration jointly moderate the relationship between turnover, intention, and actual turnover. What I am thinking about is that to see, in fact, both of them, how they are affecting transition from intention to actual turnover, or simply say that which one of them is more important. This is what I have means. Maybe my wording about the application of the word moderate might be.
They interact.
Yeah. I want to see how they really interact. For instance, one question is that if I have a person who intends to leave, should I be, in fact, supporting him more, or I should be thinking that what is frustrating him and stop that? This is what I have in mind. The person who is about to leave needs to receive support, or it's more urgent to stop being, in fact, frustrating to him or her.
Okay.
Joseph, all right.
Thanks for your presentation, especially I'm really interested in your study to result. I think that model really showed well about the advantages of dual process model. So according to your experience, you control all the paths. Now, but results showed that the different anesthetics in satisfaction independently predict the outcome, and frustration independently of predicted negative outcome. I think this is really important to kind of predictive value of the dual process model. That's really great. And my question is actually, I also had some questions about moderation, but already just gave you. then 5 different questions, then this is kind of some data analysis. What I found is, I think this is depending on the preference, your preference, but my preference is testing exactly same hypothesis or such question in your data analysis. For example, you mentioned that in research question, needs satisfaction predicts the positive outcome. Then I expected probably you develop some latent model. Then you see the overall needs satisfaction predicts positive outcome and latent model of frustration that predicts some valid outcome. That was my purpose. And because the question 3, also you again mentioned the individual needs that you want to compare their strengths. That's why. So probably kind of you need some consistency between your research question and model.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I'll try to make this in my writing more clear, exactly hypotheses and the findings and the conclusion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So throughout your manuscript, I think
Yeah.
you need to increase some consistency.
Yeah, I should. Thanks.
Thank you, Bajinda.
Yeah, maybe let's open the floor to the audience if you have maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Question to Rich. All right, Professor Rich Ryan. Floor's yours.
I just have a quick question. Because they didn't fill out the second survey. Were they high?
That's not correct. This is because, so I may reduce the sample to people who have data on both.
Okay.
Yes, so it's not like.
So my question is, they had opportunities at both times.
Yes.
Okay.
No, because some people might have joined.
All right.
So this-
So I'm interested then in the subset of people who filled out one and did not fill out another.
Yes.
So let me restrict my question to that. Are they higher in the frustration? Is there something different about those employees?
That's a good.
That's a question. That's
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah. Because they are type of people, because I am engaged in this project, and what I ask is that, so these people who are participating every year, it means that
Yeah.
they might be experiencing more frustration and look to the project as something that is going to help them. This is what I guess maybe this sample of people who are participating every year might be somehow different from those who come and go the other year.
So I guess what I just encourage is go beyond demographics. Look
Yeah.
at some of their reactions to their job as a predictor of who
Yeah,
does it every
Yeah.
year.
that's very
Regardless of what are they doing it. Thank you, Teresa, for clarifying, and not just dropouts.
It's more complexity, because in the principal data, it says 14 weeks of data, and people come and go, and they come back, and they just don't do it every year.
Yeah.
So just because they don't participate in 1 year, doesn't mean it's attrition per se, it's like drop out, drop back in.
But I think you want to answer
But-
that question,
yeah.
are they in some way disaffected or not?
Yeah,
Then you can rule that out if that's not the.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question. That's it. All right, without any further ado, that's it from here, Bajinda. So please, one more round of applause for him. Thank you. I'm just going to stop recording now, and I'll ask the panel to stay online, and I'll get the to go in. Thank you.
Thank you.